Welcome back. We've come to the end of another IMF-World Bank Week at the Atlantic Council, concluding 70 events here. We've started with the beginning at the IMF on all the themes coming into these meetings, and it's so different than what we were with when we first came here 6 months ago, 10 days after Liberation Day. And I wanted to take a moment as we sit here and reflect back on everything we heard from the finance ministers, the central bank governors, our analysts, our experts, our team, and try to take it in and understand what's happened. Because in the day-to-day flow of IMF WEO reports and upgrades and downgrades and inflation and back and forth on Argentina and everything that's flying on US and China and the trade wars and rare earths, I think we're losing sight of what's actually happening in the global economy. It's the difference between an earthquake and a series of fractures. 6 months ago at the spring meetings was an earthquake. President Trump shook the global economy with Liberation Day, and the question facing these ministers, these governors, and the people they represent was whether the global economy would ever be the same, and whether we were going back to a pre-Bretton Woods system, a time where these institutions didn't exist. And then 6 months passed, and Liberation Day tariffs paused, and some came back, and some didn't, and some deals were struck. And so we came into these meetings, these annual meetings, with everyone mistakenly breathing a sigh of relief, because they thought that things had changed and reverted to status quo. But think about where we are. The effective tariff rate in the United States is 17%. It started at 2.5%. in January. We got back to the Liberation Day level, but we got there slowly. So each of these things that's happened over the past 6 months, what's happened on tariffs, what's happened on central bank independence, growing debt problems, we're in a government shutdown here in Washington, all of them are fractures. No single one is an earthquake. But in totality, it adds up to the same thing. And the difference of how these ministers reacted this week versus 6 months ago is night and day, because they want, understandably, for things to be as they were. And no one wants to speak the hard truths, that things are changing fundamentally, they are not going back to the way things were, and everyone has to confront that openly and honestly. Because if we don't speak those hard truths, they are going to rear their heads in a painful way, one way or the other. The crunch points are coming. A year from now, we'll be in Thailand. The IMF will have to revisit its quota process, and there's no room for compromise right now between the United States, Europe, India, China, and the world's other large economies. The issues are building around the world, not just on trade and tariffs, on debt, on AI, on job loss. All of these issues are what the ministers talk about quietly and privately, but don't want to address openly because there are no good answers. There's no good explanations for how the global economy has shifted, but there is a fundamental truth that is hard to reconcile with. Henry Morgenthau, when he addressed the Bretton Woods Conference at the opening of that conference in 1944, said, "We have to be partners, not bargainers." But let's face it, the United States wants to bargain and deal with every other country in the world bilaterally. And that is not why these institutions were created in the first place. They were created on the premise that if we operated collaboratively, not bilaterally but multilaterally, we would deliver better results for the people in our own countries and the world. And we all know that that system was imperfect over 80 years. But if we break down to a simple bargaining premise of might makes right, economic leverage over one country can be exercised, we might not like what we find back in the United States. That was the lesson this week with China and its rare earth decision. Opening this up will have cost, and there's a reason this system was built in the first place. And I think the rest of the world has to be open and honest about the benefits of that system. No one seems to want to defend it. Everyone wants to say what's wrong about it, and there certainly are things that are wrong. No one wants to say that multilateralism is a good thing, that international cooperation is a good thing, that not bullying your friends and allies is a good thing. But these are truths. These are truths we've always known in this country, that central bank independence is a good thing and leads to more prosperity. This is fundamental to what makes a strong economy and what makes a healthy society. And we cannot separate out, as the ministers and governors would like to do, our geopolitics and our economic policy. There are National Guard troops outside this building all week. You don't hear that anywhere in this building throughout the week. We have a government shutdown. We have a situation going on around the world. We have flare-ups all over. But those are not issues the ministers want to confront because it's not core to what they see as the immediate objective, which is stability. But stability for stability's sakes, while technology is changing rapidly and the shifts are happening all around us, will ultimately lead to instability. So our work here, our goal at the Atlantic Council, is to tell the hard truths that are sometimes difficult to tell. This is the role of these institutions, and we will play a constructive role in doing it. The one thing about macroeconomics and data is that the numbers usually don't lie. Now, there's questions about that, and we've debated some of them here. But we need to put the data out there and let the facts speak for themselves. We need to be transparent about our economies. We need to show what's actually happening around the world. And only then can we have an honest conversation about the tectonic shifts that are happening in the global economy and how every country has to adapt to this new reality and stand by their values and stand by the process and stand by the system that has led to the prosperity that has brought us to this prolonged period of global peace unseen any time before in history. I want to thank everyone who's been part of IMF World Bank Week at the Atlantic Council across 70 events. I want to especially thank my team. I heard before that they were worried that AI could replace them. They are irreplaceable. There is nothing that technology can do that this brilliant team would ever be able to not do, because what they do is bring passion to the project. And ultimately, these institutions rely on the next generation believing in them. And when I see my team working night and day to bring the IMF World Bank meetings to everyone listening and watching and reading, that gives me faith in these institutions. And there's no ChatGPT or any other kind of chatbot of the world that can mirror that. Everyone at the engagement team at the Atlantic Council that has put their heart, effort, and creativity into bringing international finance to people who can't be in this room, who can't access these meetings. Ultimately, these meetings are about people around the world and their lives and livelihoods. And what our team has tried to do through technology, through creativity, through our writing, through our editorial, through our webcast, through our bank briefing series, is to show you what's happening, because it's your lives that it affects. And I want to thank everyone, the audiovisual team, the events team. It's an incredible production involving 100 people across the Atlantic Council. We are so proud to do this work. We consider it a privilege and an honor to talk openly about the policy decisions of our time, and it's something we never take for granted. We thank you for joining us throughout the week, and we can't wait to see you 6 months from now when we reconvene here in Washington, and 1 year when the IMF World Bank meetings go to Thailand. Thank you for being with us. We wish you a pleasant weekend.